Alrighty, I think we can go ahead and get this party started. I don't see. Oh, I do see someone in the chat. Toon is here. Hello, hello, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. I was just double checking the stream settings and everything, making sure everything was correct because my stream was wonky on Friday, so making sure everything looks right. But I think everything looks correct. So hopefully we should be good and rolling. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. Welcome back to our Owl House discussion live stream. Shadow is here as well. Welcome. Hello. Thanks so much for being here. I am joined as always by my good friend, my partner in crime, my friend from across the pond, Tom from Curmudgeon Media. Tom, want to say hi to the people?
I'm here to shit on everyone's dreams,
Oh no, as usual.
as usual.
Oh my gosh. Robin is here as well. Welcome. Ed is here as well. Hello. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. So glad to see you all here. So yeah, we're here to wrap up our discussion of the latest Owl House special. Let me get my thingy on before YouTube strikes me down. Yeah, so we're going to be here discussing this final piece of the Owl House special. It's been a long ride, y'all. We've been at this for more than a month talking about this special. We've had a lot to say,
Just a
but we're
lot to say.
but we're finally here. Finally going to be finishing this up. We have about like 7 minutes of the special left that we need to get through. So let's get through the end of it today and let's wrap this thing up. I'll just let you guys know that I'm not planning any discussion streams in the meantime in between. I know that we started doing She-Ra, but just like for the sake of my brain, like it's really hard for me to go back and forth between shows. So let's just wait till Owl House is over, I
I
think,
mean,
first is kind of what I'm
we can
thinking.
always we can always do some just like irreverent
Yeah, we'll
streams.
do some other streams in the meantime. Like just we just won't do discussion streams. We'll do some like fun, random, like just ridiculous or just fun streams in the meantime. Yeah, not anything like analysis wise, but yeah, so that's kind of my general plan for right now. That might change in the future, just a heads up. So just FYI, that's what I'm thinking right now. But for today, we'll go ahead and wrap up our discussion on this Owl House special. We've had a lot to say. A lot of back and forth, a lot of good discussion, a lot of agreements and disagreements all around, right? I think but I think it's great. I think it's been a lot of fun just dissecting the show with y'all, especially with you, Tom, who's so thoughtful and analytical. And so I really have had a really great time. So thanks so much for being here again. Really appreciate it.
I don't know if I can be described as thoughtful.
And chaotic. We
Typically,
appreciate your chaotic energy as well.
typically I think just as little as possible
That's valid.
for my own self-preservation. But
Totally.
yeah, I think this has ended up being, I think, the most I've ever had to say about the Owl House. I feel like this special ended up being uh like like the natural conclusion to a lot of like half thoughts I've had for a really long time about this show. Um and then this special happened and it kind of ended up being more like oh okay. So
Yeah.
some of my worst fears about where this show is going to go have already come true.
Right. Yeah.
um
Yeah, exactly what Toon says. Like there's definitely some criticisms to be had of this episode. And I think that we had a really good discussion around some of those criticisms. Um, but yeah,
I
definitely had some great moments in this episode as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it had some of the absolute best character moments of the whole show. I think that to me is a huge overstatement. I think, in my opinion, I think that a lot of the character writing felt like it needed to wrap up certain arcs, and it didn't, for me, do it in the most satisfying way. It did it in a very on the nose kind of way. I really liked there were some bits I really liked. I really liked the whole all I've ever wanted is to be understood
Yeah.
thing.
And I
Um,
know that we talked about that scene in the last stream, but I want to talk about it a little bit more again as we start today's discussion.
yeah, yeah.
But sorry, I cut you off. You should finish your thought.
My one thought of the day before I go back to having as few thoughts as possible. Yeah, I think saying something as absolute as best character moments of the whole show kind of undercuts just how good some of the character writing was in season 1 and the first half of season 2 and the second half of season 2. Like I don't want to dunk on the second half of season 2 too much.
Yeah.
But like I think the high point, I think we can all agree, was that moment that you have used to grace the background today. We can all agree that was like the moment.
Yes, this is definitely the high point of the episode.
But with the exception of the moment, there just actually wasn't that much in this special that I would say was the best of anything of the whole show.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. But I do think that this episode had some great character moments, and I'm glad that we spent some time with some characters. But it's a shame that we didn't get to spend time with other characters. I mean, we've talked too much already about how we wanted more Ida in this special. We wanted the reunion to happen in this special. So yeah, we won't harp too much on those things. But yes, I do think that there were some really good character moments, and I do want to start off today's discussion talking a little bit more about our favorite scene in the episode. We did talk a little bit about it last time, but I want to kind of go over this again just one more time because I've actually been rewatching season 1 recently because I am starting to outline and work on a video, which is an analysis video of the Owl House. And it's mostly going to be a character analysis about Luz. It's going to have some other parts in there as well. But at least for the time being, I'm focusing on this Luz character analysis part of it. There's going to be more to it when it eventually comes out. But for now, this is what I'm working on.
Presumably the rest of it, like 75% of it, is going to be Hootie is trans analysis.
Exactly.
Presumably.
Yeah, no, exactly, you nailed it. That's exactly right. But for the rest of it, it's going to be Luz. But I have been thinking a lot about Luz and her character arc. And we had a really I don't want to put you on blast, Tom, but we had a discussion off stream the other day where we talked a little bit about the Owl House. I know, guys, heaven forbid that we talk about the Owl House off stream, but we talked a little bit about the Owl House, and you had some really interesting criticisms that I think were really valid. And I think that maybe like you were telling me when we talked about it, maybe a little bit of a hot take that some people might disagree with.
You really are putting me on blast here.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on blast, but I want to talk a little bit about what you said, and basically to kind of sum up what Tom said. Do you mind if I put you on blast a little bit? I won't say like everything what you said.
Go ahead. Put me completely on blast. I'm ready to defend my opinions.
Sure. So basically, or do you want to say it? Or I don't want to speak for you.
Okay. So I want to preface everything I'm about to say by saying that I love Luz. She's like one of my favorite protagonists of recent years.
Yes.
I think we've been doing like art lessons behind the scenes, and every time I get a chance to talk about how perfect Luz's design is, I talk about it because it's a magnificent design. Every evolution of Luz's design is absolutely fantastic and looks so good and is so brilliant from a shape language perspective. This is me speaking as someone who has like many people, so this is entirely subjective. Someone who's really experienced depression since my teen years, and struggle with that a lot. I was not wholly satisfied with the way Luz's angst has been portrayed, and I found it to be very overbaked in a way that it doesn't take me out of the experience. It's one of those things, like, to be clear, it's not like a huge issue I have. My big hot take is that I don't actually like that part of Luz's arc that much.
Like the angsty Luz.
Because it very quickly felt like a lot of the character writing in this special. It feels very on the nose and very like, I don't want to say over dramatic. I really do think overbaked is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
In a way that felt like, and this is going to sound like a really weird thing to say about a cartoon, but it felt cartoonish. Because the thing about this show that never felt cartoonish were the characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the one thing about the show that never felt cartoonish was the characters and their emotions, which always felt very like authentic and sincere.
Definitely.
Like like you can kind of do whatever you want with characters and make them as silly and fun, as ridiculous as you want, but so long as their emotions feel sincere and authentic, the audience will follow them wherever they go. And Sad Loose just got frustrating to me very quickly because it didn't feel authentic. It felt like a what people trying to find the right words to describe this
Yeah.
is really, really difficult because
Yeah.
like it felt like, and I have no doubt that the people who wrote that whole arc do themselves have experience of depression. But whether or not they do personally have that experience, it comes across like it was written by people who don't know what depression is and have not themselves felt it. Now, that is just how I feel about it. I felt like the way they communicate it became very frustrating to me very quickly. With the whole, you've got the whole scene in class where they're talking about like an ambiguous book. It's not like a specific
Right.
book,
Yeah,
whatever
and
book they're
Luce is,
talking
like, saying, "Oh, this hero,
about.
blah, blah, blah," when she's really talking about herself, right?
Like she gets up on the table and goes full Shakespeare, and I really rolled my eyes at that. I found that just I don't know, but like
Yeah.
but even then I'm conflicted about it because Luce is a very like over the top
Right.
person, but I just
So I've been thinking about that, right? So I really think that a lot of what you're saying is valid, where like some of the angst was maybe like a little too, just to use your word, overbaked, right? Like it was just a little bit too, maybe ham-fisted, maybe is another way to kind of
ham-fisted,
say it.
that's the
It's like
thing.
not very subtle, right? It's just really in your face with the angst, right? And I do agree with Toon that like considering what Luz has been through in her arc, like it makes sense that she would have these like negative emotions, right? Like
I
to
do
say the
think she'd
least.
have negative. I don't think she would just carry on being all happy-go-lucky,
But
but
there's something that you told me in
I
our discussion that I think really nails your criticism on the head, which was in the first season 3 special, which was thanks to them, right? It really only felt like we had the real Luce for one scene, and that scene was the scene between her and Hunter after
yeah.
they had thought that they had saw
Hmm.
Bellows, but they didn't actually, right?
It's
And they like find the possum, and Luce is like, "Oh, it's just a little
just a
angel,"
little
right?
angel
That was like the one scene that like Luce
where
felt
she
like Luce.
It's yeah, and when I think of characters in media, like, and I'm trying to specifically draw on characters from like media that's marketed to kids, because I don't think it's fair for me to bring Cowboy Bebop into this, because Cowboy Bebop, like,
Right.
is Cowboy Bebop a masterclass on how to write characters with depression? Yes, there is nothing better. However, it's not for kids, so
No,
it's like
yeah.
the way you communicate those emotions is going to be different. But I think about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Okay, but hear me out. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX has a similar thing with its protagonist, where there's a lot of stuff going on with Jaden Yuki towards the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is very like, he makes some decisions that he blames himself for and like blames himself for certain destructive things that happen. And like people don't like when people have depression, their personality doesn't just disappear,
Right.
right? They don't just suddenly go sullen, they don't just suddenly become like uh uh they don't just suddenly become a different person, and it's not impossible for a person with depression to morph into to someone completely different over a long period of time, but they don't just suddenly lose the cognitive portrait that makes them who they are. um and like Tune, I don't know if you have yourself experienced, like I don't know if you have. This is not me saying that you haven't. This is me saying I don't know if you've experienced depression, and I don't know that if you have experienced depression, it is close to what Luce is feeling. But I'm just speaking as someone who has lived with depression for a very, very, very long time, and has also gone through specific periods of my life where I've done things that I've hated myself over, or things have happened to me that have caused me a lot of anguish. Um, and so like me saying this is not me trying to like dunk on the writers and dunk on the character. It's just I'm just trying to like frame it as I
Yeah.
have a lot of personal thoughts about this.
Yeah. And I think
And
it's fine to disagree as well.
it's fine to disagree, but I just found it frustrating. I found the way that her sullenness was framed to be frustrating.
Yeah. I
When there are other examples, I mean, honestly, Infinity Train is great for it. Like Infinity Train, every season is another character who's going through some kind of existential crisis, you know, varying in severity, but their emotions are still very real. And Tulip is it never like ceases to have, like, Tulip doesn't spend the whole season just with her fucking hands in her pockets being sullen and miserable, you
Yeah,
know.
I think so I think like what you say, I really agree with a lot of your criticisms, Tom. I agree that this like was a little ham-fisted, a little overbaked, a little unsubtle. I do think that it is an important part of her arc to have
I
this kind
absolutely
of,
agree. I completely agree. I
yeah.
just don't like the way they did it.
Yes, I just don't like the way they did it. Yes, I think that's kind of the way that we can sum up the criticism that we
Because
have is
I do absolutely think, like, I mean, honestly, Steven Universe Future did it very, very well.
absolutely,
Steven, I
absolutely,
don't know why it took me so long to bring up Steven Universe Future, but Steven Universe Future is the absolute masterclass in it for you know, in a way that I think is you know, open to an older audience, but not alienating to a younger audience at all in the way that
absolutely,
like a
yeah,
Cowboy Bebop would be. They communicate very effectively the enormous existential crisis that Steven is having in that show without turning him into what I would describe as a facsimile of grief.
yeah.
And that's what Luz felt to me in that special. She felt like a facsimile of grief
Sure. Yeah, and I think
rather
that
than feeling
that
authentic.
unfortunately is kind of a byproduct of the shortening of you know, of the fact that we had to kind of wrap up Luce's character arc within you know, these 40-minute specials versus like across a whole season, right? So I think like a lot of that does have to do with the fact that we just have to get to the end, unfortunately. And because this is an essential part of Luce's arc, and I do want to talk a little bit more about why I think it's an essential point of Luce's arc, because I think it was essential, it needed to be there. But I agree with you that it was just a little too much, too in your face, too kind of clunky. Maybe is another way to say it. Just
I
a little awkward the way they approached it.
I think that people underestimate how valuable silence is
Mm.
um, in communicating really, really weighty emotions.
Yes, and I think that they did. Like I think Camila, we talked about Camila and Luz going through kind of parallel arcs, right? And how Camila was my favorite part of the special because of how subtle all of her kind of emotional um like her internal conflicts were going, right? Like they were really subtle moments. It was just her looking at the Grom photo, right? Like her noticing Luce looking at Amity, right? Like all these just really subtle moments of Camila
mm,
just silently reacting to things. And like that I think was like beautifully done and amazingly done and really you know, leads to this moment in a beautiful way. It's just it would have been nice to have a little bit more of that subtlety with Luce's arc as well, I think, in my opinion.
and yeah, I mean, you get a lot of that. God, I'm gonna make it about Cowboy Bebop. You get a lot of that in Cowboy Bebop, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
Where so much of our experience of how these characters are feeling is told without words, and
Yes.
all you
Yeah.
really need is like a look or just a character being quiet for a bit, you know, like just sitting quietly, and we get it, we understand. Like there's an episode later on, I think it might actually be the penultimate episode, and Spike is just sat at the bar,
Right.
just like with his head in his arms, just like not saying anything at all, and you understand the depth of what he's feeling without him needing to say it. And like, do I think we need to take Luce to a bar and have her sit there in silence? No, but I think that silence as a tool is seriously underrated in communicating grief.
Definitely. Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, I Steven Universe Future is a show. The individual episodes of SU Future are shorter than the individual episodes of the Outhouse.
Right.
Um, but it still has moments where like a quiet visual. Hang on, there is subtlety with Luce, but it's used to accentuate her emotion rather than communicate it in and of itself. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Tune. I think you're gonna have to be
Yeah,
more
I think
specific.
this might just be a place where we kind of agree to disagree. Like I think Robin, I do want to appreciate what you said in the chat here. You can agree what Tom with what Tom said, that Luz's depression doesn't feel authentic based off of your own experiences, but you're also used to that kind of writing and you didn't really think about it. I think that's like a good point. That's kind of how I I didn't really think about it until Tom brought it up either, right? Like
that's I will completely agree with Robin on that one, because my point here is not that I disliked any of this or that I thought it was bad. I just think it was functional. And I'm with something like this that's so personal to me, functional just wasn't good enough, really.
Yeah.
Like, it's functional. It's what we expect shows and movies to depict depression as, or the experience of depression or grief as being. But when we've had so many, like we've had at this point in time, in this era of modern animation, where we've had even shows like Craig of the Creek have explored grief in a way that felt to me
absolutely
just a little closer to home, you know. But particularly Infinity Train, which just nailed it.
Yeah,
in every way.
That really is the pinnacle of like character writing,
like,
right?
And like Infinity Train, I feel very similarly with Infinity Train as I do to like Fargo, where even though season 4 was my least favorite, it's still like an absolutely incredible piece of television.
Absolutely.
It's still like an amazing piece of television. And season 4, like even with these two, like those two characters in season 4 felt very larger than life, but it still had those moments, you know, where it knew, and I feel like the writers on Infinity Train always knew that with these really complicated emotions like grief and mourning and depression, and often less is more.
Yeah.
And I think when you've got a show that is struggling so much for time, I kind of wonder why they didn't favor less is more, when I think less really would have been more. But
no, that's a good point.
It doesn't bother me. I still really liked the first special. Like, I still really liked it, and functional or not, it's still like an essential part of Luce's arc,
right?
You know.
Yeah, I think like to kind of sum this up, because we've been talking about this for 25 minutes now and we need to move on, but just to kind of summarize what we're trying to say is like we do acknowledge that this sort of grief and this sort of like internal doubt and conflict is an essential part of Luce's arc, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think that is, because I haven't even gotten to that part yet. But generally speaking, because of the cut time, because of the shortened season 3, because of like how much ground we really had to cover within these two specials, the way that they handled this arc just felt very like Tom said, functional. Felt very like we need to do X, Y, and Z step to get to Z destination, right? Like it just felt very much like that. And because of that, like I think like what Tom said, like this script just sort of needed either like one more draft pass over, or like one more editor to just take a look at it to kind of like critique these little mistakes and here and there. So it's not that we think it's necessarily like bad or like we disagree with the choices, but we just wish that it could have been handled a little bit differently, a little bit better. And I think it's fine to disagree with that as well. Like I think that there are going to be people out there who have experienced like depression in this way, right? And so not to invalidate those experiences, but we're just saying that it didn't resonate with our experiences. That's kind of what, to summarize our criticism, is.
I said before the stream started that the Owl House didn't kill enough darlings.
Yes, yeah, that's another good way to put it. It's funny to think about this in comparison to Amphibia, where people complained about the lack of grief. Yeah, I think like Amphibia, Amphibia was never going to be the show to focus on angst, right? Like that's just not the kind of show that was.
Yeah. Amphibia. There was a large portion of the Amphibia fan base who were just impossible to please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, this is not an Amphibia discussion stream. Let's get back to it. So I do want to talk a little bit about why I think like this sort of like conflict is important to Luce's arc, and why I think it needed to be there as part of this story for her, and what I really liked about it. I kind of want to get into that a little bit as well too. And I noticed as I was rewatching season 1 that this moment with Camila where she's like putting her hand on Luce's face is like almost a direct parallel to the beginning of the show when Camila was like kneeling down and putting her hand on
Yeah.
Luce's face and being like, I know you, I love your creativity, but you don't have a single friend, right? Like it's such,
You're
I
a
feel like
fucking Billy no mate.
yeah, but
That's
I
what
feel
she
like
said.
this is an intentional parallel, right? Because that is
Yeah.
the moment that Camila did not understand Luz, right? And then this is the
It
moment
brings
where
it
she's
full circle.
finally understanding her, right? Yeah, coming full circle, right? And like this misunderstanding between these two characters, right? Between Camila and Luz is the crux of the entire show when you think about it, right? Like Luz would not have left and gone to the Boiling Isles if it weren't for this conflict, right, between these characters. Like Luce would not have felt the need to lie to her mom throughout season 1 if it weren't for this conflict between these two characters, right? And like Luce has struggled throughout the entire show of trying to figure out like what does it mean to be her authentic self, right? Like that is essentially what Luce's arc is like through the show, like finding her true self and like figuring out what that means, right? And also finding the people who will see her for who she is, right? I think like that's another really important part of her arc is that in the human realm, she didn't have friends. She didn't have people who understood her. She didn't have people who like saw her for who she actually was versus the Boiling Isles. She had Ida, she had Amity and Willow and all of her friends who finally acknowledged and saw her for who she actually was. And she didn't need to like hide aspects of herself, right? And the thing that's interesting about that is that Luce was figuring out what that means for herself while it was happening. And I think like that is so important because a lot of the times when we're teenagers, we don't like know what we want, right? And that's like another important part of Luce's arc, right? The fact that she doesn't know what she wants, the fact that she just is lost because all
I
she
think she
knows is that she's
spends
missing
so much
something.
time. Yeah, spent so much time in the first 2 seasons, like not knowing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like not even knowing what you're missing, right? Like she wants to be understood, but she like doesn't even know that, right? And so like the fact that she's going through her arc looking for this meaning but not even knowing what that is. Like I think that's such a beautiful character arc to give to a protagonist. Like the search for something that you don't even know what it is yet and then figuring out what that is through getting what you need. Like I just think that that's really well done and really beautiful. And like Luce figuring out that she wanted to be understood by finally being understood by her peers and her mentors, right? And then now the final kind of like icing on the cake is getting that understanding from the person that denied it to you from the beginning, right? From the person that whose denial of it set you off on this course to begin with, right? And so I think that this is just such an important full circle moment for Luce's arc. I think like her and I think another important like stop along this journey, right, was in Yesterday's Lie when Luce promised her mom, right? Like her mom was like, promise me you'll stay here, right? Because that was still a moment. And I think that this is a callback to that moment as well, too, right? That was a big moment where Camila did not understand what Luce was going through and like why that was a bad promise for Luce to make, right? And so this is now Camila doing the exact opposite of that, right? She wants Luce specifically to stay in the Boiling Isles and to not leave and to not remove herself from this place entirely, right? So because that is like another callback to that moment, again, it's a parallel to both Camila's arc and Luce's arc, right? In Yesterday's Lie, Luce was ready to promise Camila that she would stay in the human world and leave the Boiling Isles. And this was, again, part of her not understanding what it is that she wanted, right? She didn't understand that what she wanted was for her mom to understand why she needed to stay in the Boiling Isles. But instead, because she didn't know that that's what she wanted, and she thought what she wanted was her mom's acceptance, right? She felt the need to make this promise to her mom, despite it not being what she wanted and needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that confliction of instincts towards acceptance and understanding, and the difference between those two things as well is
Yes.
something I hadn't even thought about, because they're not the same thing.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Seeking to be accepted by someone in many cases means changing who you are to fit their standard.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, 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 absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of like hash that part of it of like why I think like this whole Luce and Camila having this misunderstanding is just such like a core tenet to Luce's character arc and kind of like what drives her motivations throughout the entire show, right? Um,
Indeed.
in other words, Copenhagen, Denmark is the Boiling Isles. What is that a reference to? Why do I
Hang
recognize
on.
that, but I don't exactly know what that's a reference to?
Hang on. Lucy's journey is suddenly resonating with me as I realize how coming to Copenhagen and being what openly neurodivergent queer has made getting a ton of friends so easy. It's a personal anecdote.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I
It
missed the
was
first
not a
part. I
reference.
missed the first part of your chat, Robin. So I was like, what does that mean? Okay,
It was
gotcha. I
not a
understand
cryptic
now.
reference.
Tune says this is how you handle a misunderstanding plot. Yeah, I feel like this part of the plot did a really good job.
Yeah. God. I feel exasperated. I feel exasperated. I feel like so much of my being on these streams at this point is me trying to quantify like really nebulous, confusing
It's
feelings I have
tricky,
about the
right?
show.
It's tricky, but this is kind of why I like doing the streams versus like cuz like if we were trying to sit there and trying to like write a script for a video essay on like why we were feeling this way, I feel like it'd be really hard, right? But this is why I really like doing the discussion streams and especially doing the streams with you, Tom, because we kind of get to
Mm.
bounce these ideas off of each other in real time. But what I really like about doing the discussion streams is that we can be kind of more like go with the flow and just kind of like play
Yeah.
around with these nebulous ideas and kind of really think about how we want to articulate them and get a little bit of help from the chat as well, which is nice. So yeah, I really appreciate kind of figuring this stuff out on stream because I feel like it's valuable, right? To just kind of dissect these ideas in real time.
Yeah. I think that God, I think that the Owl House has such like an adoring fan base.
Yes, yeah, that too.
Um which makes voicing any kind of criticism of like the fabric of the show really, really difficult to do without meeting some kind of resistance.
Of course, yeah.
The Owl House is a show that it is special to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and there was a point in time when I would have happily called The Owl House like one of my favorite shows of all time. Um, and what we're looking for in media is always going to vary from person to person, and therefore the mileage of where The Owl House has gone is going to vary from person to person.
Yeah.
But like for me, the overall experience of The Owl House has really been just like a slow, gradual disintegration of interest, which is one of the hardest things to try and quantify. And I feel like I will be trying to quantify that until the day I die, because it's
Yeah.
so complicated. It's not like with like I've been thinking a lot about Little Witch Academia, which is a show that this gets compared to a lot.
Yeah.
And Little Witch Academia had an absolutely stonking first season, like it was so good. And then it had a second season that jumped the shark in so many ways. It's really easy to point at the second season of Little Witch Academia and be like, the moment when Lady Dumbledore and Lady Snape had a lightsaber duel on the side of a monolith is when I stopped caring. Um, the Owl House, it's so much more complicated than that because it's been subject to so much
Yeah.
and 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 so much like behind the scenes stuff and
Yeah. It
all
it's
this.
it's definitely complicated, you know. It's it's
It's
it's it's funny because you know, everyone, do y'all have your bingo cards ready? It's funny because the way that you kind of feel about the Owl House is actually it reminds me of how I feel about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, especially with season 7. You know, I know that Tom and I, you know, we're watching the show for the first time. So Tom, I know you haven't seen season 7 yet, so I won't spoil anything or give anything away. But I will just say that like season 7 to me feels very disappointing in comparison to the rest of the show. And it's hard to articulate why, because it's not that it's bad, but it's just that like certain aspects of the show that we really love like get lost, and the focus shifts in a way that like it's a
You're
little
just not happy
disappointing.
with,
Yeah, it's just disappointing, right?
And in a way that kind of makes you wonder why they put all that stuff in there to begin with, if it was never really like where they were going
Right,
to go with it, and if they were
right.
so happy to get rid of it. You know, um, so much of the emotional depth of the first season really is the familial relationship between Luce, Ida, and King.
Yeah,
Particularly Luce and Ida. Like King was never that important in the grand scheme of things, but you know he was a good additive to like he and Hootie were a good additive to the family dynamic.
right.
Um, and to like drop that so quickly in favor of like a romance plot that
Yeah, we talked a lot about that last time, so we won't get into it again. But yeah. So I think disappointment is maybe a harsh word. Because I still am enjoying the show. I'm still loving, the characters. I'm still invested in the show. I'm obviously gonna I know I'm still gonna cry at the finale. Like I just that's one thing that's not gonna change no matter what. Like I'm still invested in the show. I'm still invested in the characters. But I think like yeah, there are just certain aspects of it that are a little disappointing, and it's complicated, especially because of like how much the show got screwed over by the network, right?
mm,
So yeah, all this to say, I say this every stream, I say this every time we have any kind of criticisms of the show, that these criticisms really do come from a place of love and respect for the creators. We have nothing but respect and admiration for Dana and the crew and all the artists and writers and assistants and all the administrative people, right? Like every single person that like works behind the scenes on the show, like we have nothing but respect for. And we know that it's hard, right? It's hard to do long-term
it's
storytelling like
hard.
this. It's
It's hard
really,
to
really
tell
hard.
stories at all. It's hard to have a vision and bring it to life.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
Especially in an industrial setting, and especially when you have to communicate that vision to a team of other people. That's really
Exactly.
hard
Yeah.
work.
So
And I never
so
want to feel insensitive to how difficult that is to do when you think of how many shows there are out there that will never be as good as the Owl House and will never have the legacy that the
absolutely.
Owl House is
Absolutely.
undoubtedly going to have. Um, but I'm still disappointed in it. I know
Yeah.
that's a harsh word. I would
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
It
Um
didn't live up to what I was originally invested in,
yeah.
and that's just a shame to me. It's disappointing to me personally. It doesn't mean I
Yeah.
think it's like
Yeah.
objectively bad. Um,
And people are
yeah,
welcome to agree and disagree with us, right? Like no hard feelings. Like if you hard disagree with us and you think that the show is flawless and perfect and you love it, like
then
more
you
power to
can
you. That's
cast
great.
me outside, and we will. You better get ready to catch these hands.
No, no, no. No. We're not fighting anyone. Honestly, like I really I like hearing other people's perspectives on stuff, right? Like it really it reminds me that like people have their opinions and like they're all valid to an extent, right? Like I don't know. Like people can like things, people can dislike things. There's so many things in the world, right? Like
Unless you're Scott Adams, and then your opinion is trash and
is that
worthless.
the Dilbert guy?
That's the Dilbert
Oh, yeah,
guy.
fuck that guy.
His opinions
um
are trash. His opinions are not valid.
yeah, yeah. Yes, and I do agree with that too, and that it is great that the series is getting a proper end at very least. I am happy about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've been talking about this one scene for like 40 minutes. Let's go ahead and move on. I will say another little nitpick of the show. I don't want to get too harsh on this episode, but another nitpick of this episode was like, what the heck was this orb? Like what?
Yeah. It was very strange. It's like the reveal's like, oh, it's orb. It's just a
It's just an
staff.
orb. Like I saw the orb, like a clip of the orb get used in like a teaser trailer, and I saw like some people be like, "What the heck is Luz's talisman just an orb?" But obviously they're not going to reveal the talisman in a teaser trailer, right? So like I don't know. The whole orb felt like, one, we need to have more dramatic timing, and two, we need to have something to put in the teaser trailer that doesn't give it away.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt like a very odd choice to me. I was kind
It
of like,
felt it's a
what's the deal with this
it's
orb?
it would be really funny if it was just an orb. I would have made it just an orb. I would have been like, guess what, theorists, you're all wrong. It's not a snake. It's not a dragon. It's not a
It's
spider.
not even
It's a
an
fucking
animal. It's
orb.
just an orb.
It's an orb, and she's just looking at it like, oh, it's just an orb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just an orb? It's
Um.
just an orb.
Yeah. So that was a little odd to me. A little bit of an odd choice. But I was kind of like, okay, I guess we're just orb for a bit. Toon, I do want to answer your question about how I am feeling about the finale. But I think we'll save that for the end.
This is the end.
All right. So ready to accept that Luce's talisman was just going to be an ominous galaxy orb, right? Yeah, exactly. It's just like, what is
It just
this?
made me think of the gazing into my orb meme.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. Yeah, Luce just gazing into her talisman. All right. So we cut back to the Willow stuff. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time like criticizing the Willow stuff, because I think like we talked a little bit off stream, Tom, about this special and kind of how a lot of it felt very like functional. And yeah, maybe like this Willow arc also felt a little bit like, oh, we need to give Willow an arc in this episode. What can we kind of have her emotional arc be, and kind of like contrive this little thing about like, oh, she's stressed about her dad, because I mean like Gus is stressed about his dad too, right? And we don't really get that in this episode. And the idea of Willow being like, she's the rock of the group, right? Like she's the one who is strong and holds us together. Like it's something that I just feel like has not been developed enough in the first two seasons.
We all know Hootie is the rock.
Right, exactly.
Where's Hootie's arc?
So it's not a matter of like disliking this arc for Willow, or thinking that it was unnecessary to her character. It's just that I feel like it was, again, a little ham-fisted, a little unsubtle, a little told versus shown to us, especially considering how little of Willow we got in season 2. So yeah, again, just a little nitpick of the way that these character arcs are written, but not to say that I dislike them, you know.
Yeah, they're just kind of there. It all feels very disconnected, I think.
Yes, that's another good way to put it. It does feel, and I feel like Willow, Gus, and Hunter, like they have a really great relationship going on, and I really like it. I really enjoy watching these characters together. But I think you used the right word there. It does feel a little disconnected from the rest of the stuff that's going on, right? Like, I think even the show a little bit makes fun of that, with Luce being like, did I miss something again? Right? Like, it just feels a little like an odd choice to have it be so disconnected from everything else.
Yeah.
Hootie's arc in the final episode. Source, trust me, bro. Yeah, exactly. The sequel series, The Orb House.
Hootie is finally gonna live his dreams of becoming a mystery writer.
Yeah.
The end of his arc.
Shadow says, it annoyed me a bit that Willow's biggest anxiety right now is missing her dads. Like, the world is ending. Is that the first thing? Well, I think like that's fine, to obviously be worried about your dads, but it just felt like it had a little too much focus maybe in this episode. I don't know. It just, again, I think a lot of these things would have been solved if we had just had the full season 3, right? If we had just more time to kind of like stew on these emotions a little more than just having us like get thrown in our face.
And have a beach episode.
And then have the beach episode, exactly. We really needed that beach episode. Yeah, and then Gus is just sort of like here too, right? Like, oh yeah, reliable people need help too. Thumbs up. I'm gonna get eaten by these plants now. Yeah, so it felt like Gus was just sort of there, and then yeah. Again, I don't want to get too negative on this, but I feel like it just needed a little bit more time in the oven. The script just needed one more pass over, one more editor to take a look at it, little things like that. Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit though. This has been kind of a big source of discourse throughout the fandom a little bit. And I do want to talk about Hunter a little bit, because Hunter, I don't know if you guys know this, Hunter is one of my favorite characters in the show. I really think that he's one of the best written characters in the show as well. And you know, we there's been a lot of discussion about this idea of Hunter now having magic, right? He has the ability to teleport and to use that his like dash ability, right?
He's
Because
Chainsaw Man.
because it's Chainsaw Man. Yeah, right. It's very similar. And you know, I know that a lot of people have talked about the Owl House having these allegories for disability, and I do think that Hunter can kind of fall under that allegory of, you know, he's someone who was born without the ability to naturally do magic, right? He doesn't have a bile sac.
Oh God.
Like he's quite literally missing the organ, right, to be able to like function the way that rest of society does. And if that's not an allegory for disability, I don't know what is.
But now he's got Pachita.
So now he's
inside.
got
I mean,
he's got
Flapjack,
that dog inside of him.
the chainsaw dog demon, and now he's Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
And
So I saw some people kind of talk about how Hunter getting magic might potentially undercut the disability allegory, and I do see where those people are coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with them, because the way that I interpret it more is that obviously like it does kind of have to it's a little bit of it's complicated, right? Because we're kind of mixing our metaphors here a little bit, because Hunter has this like disability allegory to him, but then he also has this like loss and grief allegory to him too, right? With
this loss.
No, not loss, this grief allegory to him, right? Where Hunter and Flapjack like represents a lot metaphorically to Hunter, right? Like Flapjack is not only this connection to his past, and you know, we know about Caleb and all that stuff too, but he's also like Hunter's first friend, right? And like the first person, the first entity, I should say, to really like guide Hunter on the right path, right? And so like there's a lot of implication, and we talked a little bit during the first special discussion about Flapjack's own kind of like atonement, right? And like what that represents for him. So it's a little bit of a mixing of the metaphors here. So with the friendship and the grief metaphor, I think that this is perfect and makes a lot of sense. You know, it makes sense that Hunter's love of Flapjack would continue to live on in him and manifest in this way as like actual magic. I think that that's a really beautiful way to kind of illustrate this idea of, you know, our loved ones are always with us to an extent. And I don't think it necessarily undercuts the disability allegory, because it's not like Hunter has full magical abilities. He's not like able to cast spells like normal and do whatever. Like he's literally just able to do, I mean, as far as we know, right? Like we haven't seen him try anything else, but as far as we
haven't seen him try to turn his face into a chainsaw yet. So the jury's
that's true.
out on that.
That's true. I guess that's coming. We should look forward to that in the finale. But we haven't really seen him do anything else. But as far as we can see, his only ability is this dash ability. And so I don't think that it necessarily undercuts the disability allegory, because it feels more. I saw a Twitter thread about this actually when the special first came out. So apologies to the person who wrote this that I don't remember who you are, but they wrote a really nice thread about how like this is almost an allegory for like a mobility aid, right? Like, so Hunter, if he is disabled and quite literally does not have an organ that the rest of society has, in order to function properly, that that his palisman, even before his palisman got absorbed into him, his palisman has always kind of acted like a mobility aid, right? It allowed him to like function and do these things in the witch society as a normal witch, despite not having the natural ability himself to do that. So I really like that angle to it. I think that is a nice way to look at it, and I feel like the disability allegories are something that the Owl House has always done really well. And so I like the way that they approach it with Hunter as well.
Yeah. And there's also a non-zero chance that it was actually never intended as a disability metaphor.
Of course, yeah. But I think that interpretation of it is compelling.
Yeah, it's completely valid. I hadn't heard that one myself personally, but yeah, it's cool interpretation.
Yeah.
when you mentioned it, my first thought was like, yeah, like a some kind of mobility aid or some kind of aid like that,
Right. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
any kind, like a
Exactly.
hearing aid, or some people will undergo like a complicated surgery.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so yeah, it's there. It's there.
Exactly. Um. Hunter can dash like in Wario Land. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Flapjack man, exactly, exactly. Glad we're all
He
on the
has
same page.
his face turns into a flapjack.
The magic of friendship. I like that. That was funny. They do a little blast and Luce has kind of a silly moment, right? This was a nice Luce moment that felt like our old Luce again, right?
Mm, in many ways, I feel like the reason they the reason that Luce got written the way she was, with the sort of the depression and the grief and the sullenness, feels to me like a symptom of the fact that they're not quite sure how to manage those sort of two sides of her character at once.
Yeah, sure. I think that's valid.
How to make a character like happy-go-lucky and like
And
quirky and
angsty.
fun, and also very sad. Um, which is not easy to do, but it's been done before and it's been done very well.
What are some examples of that, of like traumatized happy-go-lucky characters that were well written?
Vash the fucking Stampede from Trigun.
I've not
Vash,
watched
Vash,
Trigun.
Vash and Luce would get on like a house on fire because they're both a couple of little nerdy Dorcases. But Vash, his happy-go-lucky attitude is always sort of covering a deep underlying sense of grief and responsibility for some personal fuck ups. um, that also weren't really his fault. So it's very similar in that regard.
Hmm. Simba from
Um,
The Lion King? That's actually a really good example.
fair enough.
I do want to answer Theus's question. Now that Luz is understood by her mom, do you guys think that she will want to stay in the Boiling Isles? Yeah, I think so. I think that was a big thing that was keeping her from wanting to stay, was the idea of like her thinking that her mom didn't want her to stay, right? Like her mom, she made this promise to her mom, but now that her mom understands her, like I think that that'll lead her to wanting to stay.
I think she's gonna leave, and I think she's gonna move to Slough and get a job in the get a job in the smokestacks.
Oh my god, stop. I mean, that'll track for what we've seen of her in season 3, right?
I can't I can't wait to see the Slough house.
The Slough house. Oh my god.
Then she really will have a reason to apologize to her mother
Exactly.
for
Exactly.
going to Slough.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, so we get this battle, right? This is just kind of a battle for the sake of a battle. We got to fight Kiki Miki. But it's fun. It's a fun battle. We get to see Willow's plant magic. We get to see some illusion magic from Gus. They do the double team from Pokemon where they duplicate Willow and Kiki Miki blast the copies. Like, that's fun. I always enjoy the choreography of the combat of the show. Like, they do a really good job of like just illustrating the strengths of the characters and like making each fight kind of unique in its own way. Obviously this wasn't as kind of crazy as a fight as we got in the first special, but this is still a really fun fight, right? Like, we get to see Hunter do the dash again, and we get some cute little Hunt Low moments too, right? With Hunter catching Willow and them doing a little blush at each other, and then of course Luz being like, what the heck did I miss, which is funny in its own right?
Indeed.
But yeah, again, like we already talked a lot about how we feel about the whole Kikimora part of this episode, so we won't get into that again.
The Kiki Miki.
The Kiki Miki of it all.
The Kiki Miki part of the episode.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was kind of like sad to see not get acknowledged a little bit too, was the videos that Luce made throughout season 2 coming back in some way, and I have a feeling that we're not going to have time to get to them.
Yeah, I don't think we will either. I think the point at which they would have been ideal has kind of
passed already. Yeah, so I don't think we're gonna get to them. Again, another little nitpick of this episode that I talked about last week already, but I'll just say it again because we're at this scene here now. The fact that Basha just turned around so quickly just didn't feel earned to me. It didn't make sense to me that, like, I really liked her breakdown. I liked seeing her, like, completely break down and, like, lose it. But the fact that she, like, so quickly, like, turned that around and was like, okay, yeah, now I'll be helpful and I'll fight alongside Matholoviel. It just didn't feel quite earned to me. And maybe this would have been, I would have felt better about this if this happened in the next special. But the fact that she turned around like so quickly just like didn't make sense to me. It didn't feel earned. That's another big nitpick of this episode.
It kind of speaks to how kind of unnecessary Boscha was in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess she's good now, I guess. And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, so what Thais is saying for season 3 is a mix so far. You can kind of see the writers struggle with limited time, so they didn't get a full season 3. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel.
This episode feels like an episode 10 and 11 of a 20-episode season. I'm curious to know what you mean by that. I think that's a very interesting comment. I'm just curious to know what you mean by that.
If you can kind of explain what you mean by that. I'm curious as well.
Mid-season breaks to me are typically always some of the strongest episodes in a show. Like,
I feel like the first special to me kind of almost felt like a mid-season break.
Yeah, and the actual mid-season break of season 2 was a phenomenal episode.
Yeah.
Jupiter Jazz Part 1 and 2 from Cowboy Bebop, best mid-season break of all time.
Right.
Mid-season, yeah, there are some great mid-season breaks.
Yeah, and like, you know, Basha here being like, I just want to do normal things and look great doing it. I was like, okay, what, or like, and play Grudge Me with my team. I was like, okay, like, I understand that her kind of mini arc, right, was her kind of accepting the loss of her friends and acknowledging her own struggle and whatever, right? But it just happened way too fast. I didn't like it.
Yeah. I don't feel like we needed a mini arc for Boscher at all.
Yeah,
I wasn't
and then
clamoring for one of those.
yeah, and then you know, them fighting Kikimora while they're trying to draw the glyph at the same time just felt like, oh, we need like a dramatic high stakes moment at the end of the episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, they teleport, they make their way, they just narrowly escape the blast from Kikimiki and they teleport to the skull, right? Yeah, again,
That's the one thing I actually did. The teleporting to the skull is the one thing I really did like that they brought back. That felt like a really clever bit of continuity.
Yeah, I liked that. I did like that. It felt like a good reason to go back to the school and like extract that memory. Like that I think worked. So we teleport to the skull and we get like a nice little moment. I appreciate that we did just kind of get this moment to kind of react and breathe a little bit, right? To kind of what happened. I feel like the special maybe needed more moments like this. It maybe needed a moment like this with also Ida and Lilith and King as part of the scene. But I did kind of like that we got these little moments with these characters, right? It felt nice to kind of get a chance to breathe a little bit. So, you know, we teleport. We are happy that we teleported. We finally get like Luce a chance to reconnect with everybody, right? Again, it felt a little disconnected, so the chance to reconnect is really nice. I like that we got this really fun Camila moment with Hunter and Gus, right? Because in the first special, we saw that Camila was trying to kind of hide her nerdy side and deny it a little bit, right? But because now she has like gone through this parallel arc that Luz has gone on to fully embrace your authentic true self, she has now embraced her own nerdy side as well, her own Star Trek geekery, and is free to geek out about it with these two boys who are just as nerdy. And like, you really beamed us up there, Ayo Bailey, and then they go, beam us up, beam us up. It's really cute. I really enjoyed that a lot.
I can't wait for Camila to go back home and start a podcast where she complains about Star Trek Picard.
Oh my god, yes.
I would just be like, what the fuck did Alex Kurtzman do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, definitely season 2 be written with the shortening in mind. That's fair. If we got a full season 3, I could have seen the Hexide arc after the midway point of the season. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how I kind of feel about it too. And then of course, before the end of the episode, we get the big reveal of our little friend. So Luce, that we get more sparkly, glowy orb shenanigans before I enjoyed this gag. Like, I see this episode, we talked about it last time, where this episode had kind of these little tiny like meta gags, if you want to call them that, right? And I feel like this was another one of those, right, where everyone is surrounding Luce's palisman and everyone's trying to guess what it is, right? And Camila's like, it's a dragon, it's gonna be a bat, it's gonna be a snake, an otter, right? These are all, of course, the guesses that we have all had throughout the show as we have been trying to guess what Luce's palisman is going to be, right? So I thought that was fun. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg kind of thing.
And then it turns out it was just Bob Hoskins the whole time.
And then it was just Bob Hoskins the whole time. We were right?
Everyone's just like, wait, is that just a smaller version of acclaimed British actor Bob Hoskins?
Exactly.
And then Lucy's is like, I don't know who Bob Hoskins is.
But no, we get the reveal, right? We get the reveal of String Bean, who is a snake shifter. So technically everyone is correct. How do we feel about String Bean? How do you feel about String Bean?
String Bean is a Dratini.
He does look like a Dratini.
String Bean is just Dratini. Let's be honest with ourselves here. I know that Dana Terrace is a fan of Pokemon, so I highly doubt that's accidental.
Oh yeah.
And of all the Pokemon to pick, it's a pretty good one. I like Dratini. I prefer Dragonite, but Dratini, it's a cute little friend. It's a cute little friend, and it's
little wormy.
It's a little wormy, and it's got a little snoot and a ball on its tail, and I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. I think the design is super cute. String Bean, keep that thing away from Bellows, because he would sniff them up in a second. Yeah, he would slurp this thing up like a noodle.
I'm just thinking of him like, I know you haven't seen Breaking Bad, but like anybody in the chat who's seen Breaking Bad will get this. Tuco with his Bowie knife, like crushing it up, snorting it.
Oh no!
On the blade of the knife.
Is
Tuco confirmed, not clickbait.
Oh my god. I really like String Bean. I know that String Bean has been a little bit of a controversial, I guess, decision. I know some people think it's kind of
cop out.
A cop out. Yeah, I disagree with that though. I like that we have a snake shifter for Luz. I think it makes sense.
I think it fits thematically. I mean,
exactly. I think it really does fit thematically.
The whole thing with Luz is that she didn't want to be in any one given track. She wanted to be able to kind of come and go as she pleased.
Exactly.
I
feel like having a shapeshifter as a palisman is like, it's so non-binary coded to me. Like, it's just like, it just fits really thematically in a lot of ways, right? Like, Luz, like you said, she's always been the kind of character to not fit into one track. She's, when she was trying to decide what to do in school, she wanted to do everything. And I think like something that is a big theme for the show, right, is this idea that fitting into strict categories is just like, no one fits into a strict category, right? And I talked about this a little bit last week about how all of the characters to some extent are kind of like non-binary in a lot of ways, right? Like they kind of have these like quote unquote seemingly conflicting character traits to them that on paper don't necessarily make sense, but like, because we are complex three-dimensional human beings, they it totally makes sense to have someone who is a musician with stage fright, right? Or like someone who is really strong and athletic but is also really like sweet and tender, right? Like these type of like conflicting quote unquote character traits that don't necessarily make sense, but like that's just how people are sometimes, right? Like people are complicated and like multifaceted. And I feel like that has always been a like really glaring like theme of the show. Like everyone, like no one fits in a box, right? Like that's been a big theme of the show. And so I feel like having a palisman that is able to freely shift between forms, is able to like you know, kind of express themselves in this like physical way. I think it just, yeah, again, like you said, it fits really thematically, and I think it's freaking adorable. I mean, look at this thing. He's so cute with the little ears. Come on.
I get what you're saying. I'm gonna have to disagree with you about something though.
Oh yeah.
About the whole not everybody fitting in a box, because I'm pretty sure Bellows fits in a box
Oh well,
6
yeah,
feet
he's the
under.
villain. That's the point.
He fits in a fucking casket
Ayo, got him.
underground.
Got him.
I agree with everything else though. You're just wrong about Bellows, because he does fit in a box.
Yeah.
He fits in a box. He fits in a fucking what do they call the box they put ashes in on top of the mantelpiece?
Oh, like a urn.
Fits in an urn on the mantelpiece.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I'm ready to see String Bean like interact with the other Palisman as well. String Bean and Ghost, that'll be cute. Uh this design is easily your favorite with Ghost. Yeah. Tune for Thought really likes String Bean as well. Yeah, I really like String Bean. I think String Bean is cute.
I'm sorry guys. I'm a loyalist to Albert.
Oh yeah, Albert is the best.
Like, the thing is, like, I think these are all cool designs, but let's be real, Ghost is a nothing. Ghost shows up one day and is kind of there. The rest of them, they're cute, but Albert is the real one.
Albert is the MVP, yeah.
Albert is the one who has a character.
I miss Albert. I'm ready for Albert and String Bean to interact.
Yeah, where the fuck is Albert?
Where is Albert? We haven't seen him in so long. What happened to him? Where is he?
Where is
Was
my
he even
son?
in this special at all?
He was not.
I'm so sad.
Where's my son?
Where's
boy?
my little owl son?
My boy. Look how they massacred my boy.
Look at how they massacred my boy. Yeah, String Bean is just very cute though, and I do love them. And I love this little moment with Camila too, with her speaking in Spanish. Like, oh, my precious baby, so cute. Adorable.
See, I know what shipping means, but when I read String Bean and Ghost shipping, I was imagining it as like an ocean transport company.
Yeah. Oh my god. All right. So, you know, Hunter like has this moment, you know, where he kind of like looks at the Palisman, and, you know, he's obviously like sad because he has lost Flapjack, but I think like I really just like this moment in particular with Hunter, right? Like just this expression, I think like is such a beautiful way to kind of like summarize his arc throughout this episode too, right? Where you know, he's kind of he's finally come to accept the loss that he's experienced, right? He's like,
is this loss?
I swear to God. But he's
if
yeah, go ahead.
No, you carry on. I was gonna say something.
I was gonna say basically like Hunter's arc in this episode, right, was basically like coming to terms with his loss and his grief of losing Flapjack. And I think like, you know, now that he has sort of like realized and accepted that Flapjack is gone but will always be a part of him, right, it makes this moment very like bittersweet. It's like tender, right? Like, we miss Flapjack, but we will always love him, right?
Like Spiritfarer.
Like Spiritfarer. They leave something behind, exactly. And then we kind of cap this moment off, right, with a cute little Hunt Low moment where Willow says, "You mean a lot to me too," and then they interlock pinkies. It's very very
just
cute.
Start aggressively making out, and it's really like it's not PG at all. It's like, wow, I can't believe S&P let them get away with this.
Yeah. I know that Hunter and Willow as like a ship, a relationship, is a weirdly controversial ship within the fandom. Like, I know some people like really hate it, which I think is unnecessary. I like it. I think they're cute. I think it works.
They're cute. It's innocuous. I'm indifferent to it.
Yeah, I don't understand the hate for it. I will say that.
Yeah, it seems like an odd thing to have strong feelings about.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark, I was thinking about the Bat Queen as well too. Like the Bat Queen and Albert.
If they don't bring back that fucking bat whistle, I'm gonna be so confused.
Yeah.
Like, wow, did we just forget about that?
Yeah, like, is the Bat Queen, and like, are we ever gonna get an answer? I mean, I think I'll be okay if we don't get an answer as to who the Bat Queen belonged to, but it would be nice to know.
I think we know deep down that the Bat Queen belonged to Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, to Bob Hoskins. Exactly.
Bob Hoskins being resurrected as a palisman himself is comes full circle.
Exactly. And we get this moment, right, of like, it's funny, yeah, Hootie might eat her, King might eat her, Ida might eat her, it's so funny. But it would have been funnier if we actually got a scene of Hootie and King and Ida trying to eat String Bean.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
I just wanted them to reunite this episode, and we didn't get it, and that was kind of disappointing. But
that was the one thing I was actually looking forward to seeing with this special was seeing Ida and Kamiya actually interact.
Yeah. I know. We have to get it in the next special, obviously, but yeah, it would have been nice to have it in this one. And then of course we end the episode. The Collector is there with Bellows, like, you know, looking over their shoulder, and again the Collector is
being a fucking dinlo.
And the Collector being the little scrunkle as they are, they're kicking their feet, you know, it's very cute. But yeah, they're looking down, and Bellows in Rain's puppet body is like, you know, Luz has come to help King get rid of you. And I feel like, yeah, again, this would have been more effective if King and Luz were actually together, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, you're right.
Again, I just think the script needed like one more Passover or something. There's a little tweaking. And then of course the Collector menacingly says, I think I want to play a new game, right? Which cliffhanger for the next special. What do we think the game is?
I think it's going to be Monopoly, because no one likes Monopoly. Like, that's do you want to see friendships fall apart before your very eyes?
True.
Watch people play Monopoly. It's going to be Monopoly. That's my bet. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that too. Not a fan of the way Bellows manipulates the Collector here, but the scene is definitely well lit. Yeah, it's a beautiful scene. It's beautifully animated.
That's a funny way of putting it. It's like, I don't like the way that this scene was written, but it's well lit.
It's well lit. I mean, I don't agree. I don't disagree with that.
It's like, I don't like that you sent me a photo of a knapsack full of dog shit, but it's well lit.
Oh my god.
That's exaggerating. This is not a knapsack full of dog shit.
Yeah,
This. I didn't mean it to sound like a comparison that way. I just thought the phrasing of it was funny.
Yeah. The Bat Queen is the Titan's Palisman theory is kind of dumb because the Titan is way too big. Yeah, that was a theory that I had for a while, but now I don't know.
Maybe the Bat Queen wasn't always that big.
Maybe
she just got bigger.
The new game is just straight up murder the Outhouse Gang. Yeah, the murder game, exactly.
The new game is Fortnite.
And then of course we get these cute after credits little scene shots, right? So we get King looking out at the new boiling isles with the rainbows and the stars and everything. We get this clip, which is Basha and Bartholomew fighting with the Principal Bum statue in the background. And then I think that the artwork for these are really beautiful, though. Like, I absolutely love the line work, the way that these are done. Like, they're just so gorgeous. Oops, wrong one. They're just so well done. I wish if someone in the chat knows the artist who drew these, like, please let me know, because I want to give them a shout out. But yeah, they're just really cool. And then King, of course, looking nervous and scared as the Collector being the little scrimblow with their milk and cookies, or their tea and their cookies, doing a little tea party with the rest of the coven heads as puppets, right? And King looking just so nervous and uncomfortable in the middle of all of this. And then this one, which is of course King. So Lilith, right, gets turned into a puppet, and then Ida is looking scary and in her Albi's form, and King hugs her, and the Collector kind of looks at this scene like, I don't know, how would you describe that expression? Like concerned, like worried, like genuinely feeling like some sort of genuine emotion for King, right? Because we know that the Collector doesn't necessarily like understand other people's feelings, but to an extent he does seem to care about King, right, and what King is going through. So I think that that's important.
Do you think you could zoom in on it, because I can't really see?
Yeah, it's hard because the way that the way they made this is like annoying.
Do you reckon you could find the images, like just find them on their own?
That's a good point. Let me Google and see if I can find it.
Google.
Owl House season 3 episode 2 end credits. Is this video? Oh, that's the last special. No, wait, no, that was the special. Wait. Okay, yeah, here we go. Let's see. This one might be better. Oh, mute this. Don't want to get copyright struck. Okay, yeah, this one's a little bigger. Yeah, so the collector is there looking kind of concerned at King being worried about Ida and Lilith, right? And Lilith is a puppet on the ground.
Excuse me, I'm just waiting for the stream to catch up so I can see it.
Yeah. This video I found is
There
like
it is.
low quality too, which is not ideal, but it is what it is.
I still can't see his friggin'. I'm googling his face. I'm googling that image.
Sure.
No house. Future end credits art. Let's have a look, shall we?
I'm catching up on the chat as well. I feel like the script for this was probably finalized after the final special because most of the problems can be boiled down to they needed to lay out all the pieces. Yeah, that's how I feel for sure.
I don't know if we know enough about the production process of this show to say anything for certain, but I highly doubt they would do things that way. I think that that makes it sound like they write things an episode at a time rather than having at least some kind of skeletal idea.
Right. Yeah. No. And the thing that I agree with is just that this special felt very much like we need to lay out the pieces for the finale. Right. That's what I agree with.
Okay, I'm looking at the collector's little face.
The collector's little face.
He does just look like it is like a combination of sadness and confusion.
Yeah, confusion. Yeah, that's a really good subtlety I think that's in here that I missed. Like he is confused. He is like, why is like King so worried about this owl beast lady, right? Like I think that's yeah, it's a weird like concern and confusion. That's a really good way to put it.
Concernsion, if you will.
Concernsion, yeah, exactly. No joke. I do think that just like Bill Cipher, they have built up the collector in such a way that he's too strong for the gang to realistically beat him by force. They have to outsmart him to win. I think it's going to be like the power of friendship kind of.
Yeah, I don't think they need to outsmart him. I think Bill Cipher was like straight up chaotic evil.
He was evil, right? Like he wanted to kill people.
Like the collector is being built up as like more of a tragic figure.
Yeah. So I think instead of outsmarting, it'll be a matter of like getting through to him emotionally.
Yeah, to turn him around on Bellows and finally put Bellows in the box that he belongs.
The box, put him in the box.
The only character in the show belongs in a box. Exactly.
Even though I think that the special is good on the whole, I really hope that the final special makes up for the shortcomings in this one. Yeah. And then we get a little scene of Basha being comforted by Kiki Miki while the rest of the gang is fighting off one of the Star Sentry things, right? So yeah, a little bit of backstory there. This one was cute. This one I thought was funny with Bartholomew trying to draw on his facial hair and his sideburns in the mirror while Gerbo is just in the back here like brushing his teeth, watching him do it. Like it's just funny to me.
Just a little bomb fluff.
Yeah. And then this one is very cute, very funny with Lilith, getting her hair cut by her one-handed sister. So you know that's gonna go great. And then King just giving her this like side eye as Ida is like happily chopping away at Lilith's hair. It's a really funny a funny image. I thought this was great.
Not giving Ida a prosthetic arm is to me just a real missed
They
opportunity.
better give her one in the next
Prosthetic
special.
arms are never not cool in
Yeah.
fantasy and sci-fi. They're always cool.
Yeah, just make her freaking Edward Elric. Yeah, they do definitely has a lot to do in a little bit of time. That's for sure. And then how many more of these do we have? Oh, this one is sad, right? We have King looking at like a reflection in the water, and it's like season 1, right? We got this old Ida with her long hair and her arms, and Luce hugging King, and King just kind of remembering and thinking back to this time, right? It's like it's really sad because King has been through a lot. King has been through a lot, and yeah, he's just a little guy.
In many ways, I feel like the way they handle King's response to all the shit that's happened to him has been a lot more like well-serving of his character than with Luce.
Yeah, I think so too. And then of course this final shot of just the collector, right, floating up to their castle, sad and lonely and on their own.
My son, my boy,
Our
my
little
child,
a little scrunklo.
a little scrimb.
Scrunkly little scrimblow.
Grimbly.
Yeah, so okay, I do want to talk a little bit before we wrap up, just kind of thoughts on my thoughts on what I feel about the next special. And I don't know, I don't really want to like make predictions because I'm happy to hear other people's predictions. If you,
I feel like with predictions we're past that at this point.
yeah, I do think like we'll definitely see the Ida and Camila reunion interaction, right? We have to see that at this point. Like they can't not have that. Obviously we're gonna have to see like getting through to the collector in some way. Obviously we're gonna have to see taking down Bellos in some way. Honestly, I hope they just fucking kill him. Like I don't really see any other end for Bellos other than just fucking ending him. What else do we have to see? We have to see what happens, right? Like in terms of like how the resolution between the two worlds is going to resolve itself, right? Like I highly doubt it's going to be what Amphibia did with like permanently closing off access to the other world. I think that we'll either get some sort of like permanent portal, like, oh, the door is just permanently open and we can just go back and forth at will, or maybe like scheduled summer vacations in the Boiling Isles or something like that, right? Like I think we'll get some version of going back and forth between the two realms. Because I know that some people thought about the idea of like Camila and Luce just like moving to the Boiling Isles, but I don't think that is gonna happen either, because Camila she has a life on Earth, and like I also don't think it would make sense for V to necessarily come back to the Boiling Isles. I feel like V is like so comfortable and so happy in the human world, and like is essentially like Camila's daughter at this point, that we don't necessarily like, I don't think it would make sense to leave her behind, right? I feel like they would need to be together in some way. So I think the thing that just makes the most sense is like having it be open and having the worlds be connected and freely going back and forth between the two. That's just how I see this going.
Yeah, me too. Thematically it made sense for Amphibia to kind of have that closure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas for this it would feel antithetical to the point.
Yeah, exactly. There's also the whole Evelyn and Caleb stuff that's willing to be fully revealed. Yeah, I think that like at this point we have all the pieces tuned to like confidently say what's going on with the Evelyn and Caleb stuff. I think we just need that kind of last bit of tying that in together with.
Yeah, I don't feel like we need much more deep. I mean, they tell us the whole story about Caleb and Evelyn in the last special.
Right, exactly. But how that connects to Hunter and Ida, I think, is how we're going to see that tie in the finale. Thea says, I want a time skip and Bella's dying. That will be happy. That'd be interesting if we got a time skip, actually. I didn't really consider that or think about that. Do you think we'll get a time skip? Or I guess, rather, what would you want to see in a time skip, Tom, if we were to get one?
Fuck, that's a good question. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
It's time skips, I think. Time skips are a little played out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Everything does it. Amphibia did it. Arthur did it. And I know, like, a lot of people find it satisfying to be like, oh, let's take these characters and make them adults, and we can see, like, what's going on. And, like, even She-Ra kind of almost did it because she has a vision of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's even real, we don't actually know. It's just what the room is showing her. I can see them doing a time skip because I can see Dana Terrace wanting to include the original designs somehow.
Yeah.
I don't care for a time skip, so I actually don't have any opinions of what I'd want to see in a time skip.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had an idea, but I don't think you're gonna like it. But
is the idea that they all join Turning Point USA?
no.
It's probably going to be chill with it.
No, I feel like this is a possibility. I'm not saying that I think this is going to happen. I don't think that this is what, like, this is not a prediction. I'm not going to say this as like a prediction, but I will say one of my, so, you know, there's some tropes every so often that, like, you have to acknowledge are like very cheesy tropes, but like you like them anyway, right? So my guilty pleasure cheesy trope is having the finale of something occur at a wedding. I don't know why. And I know how you feel about romance, Tom. So I know that is maybe not a trope that you like, but that is definitely a trope that, like, I just have that guilty pleasure towards. Like, I just like things ending on a wedding because I don't know. There's just something like hopeful and like optimistic about the future, you know, when it comes to like a wedding, and it has like all the characters together, right, and like celebrating. Like, there's just things about like a wedding finale that I really enjoy. And so, like, I'm not saying this is gonna happen. I'm not saying that I want to see this or whatever, but I could see.
That is what you're saying.
I could see a time skip potential. Have like an Ida and Rain wedding and have that be the finale.
Oh God. Of all the weddings to have.
I mean, they're not going to do a Lumity wedding, I don't think.
Well, they could if they did a time skip.
I just don't think that that's how they're going to end it, though. Like, I don't know. I feel like a Ida and Rain wedding is just more likely to happen in a time skip.
Yeah, and I'd be fine with a wedding. I just wouldn't care for that wedding.
That's what I mean by I know that you wouldn't necessarily like it, but
now
I feel like if we were going to get that wedding as the finale trope, I think the most likely wedding would be Ida and Rain.
An Ida and Camila wedding.
Oh my God, yes! Can we get an Ida and Camila wedding? I would love that. I personally would really love that. Oh my gosh. Thea's asked, would we rather have a young Ida and Lilith school spin-off show or a Sprig and Ivy future adventure show? Ooh, that's a good question.
Neither.
Ouch.
Neither. No, I don't mean that in a mean way. I think that spin-offs, I think that, like, you know how there's this idea, right, that like death is what gives life meaning.
Sure.
Stories aren't stories if they don't end.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like a spin-off would be, to me, really unnecessary.
Tell that to all the network executives right now who are greenlighting reboots and spin-offs and sequel series right now, because I completely agree with you that stories are special when they end.
Toon, I really have to know, why are you vouching for a Rain, Camila, Ida polycule?
Because Ida has 2 hands.
Yeah, but why the 3 of them? Like, it's why?
I want Ida, Rain, Camila, and Darius in a polycule.
I'm chill with a polycule. It's just like I can't. see those three. I can see Ida and Rain because the show wants me to, and I can see Camila and Ida because I want them to.
I want Camila,
I,
Ida,
but I
Rain,
can't see
and
the.
Darius in a polycule all together.
I cannot see I cannot see the three of them together. I can't see that working. But that's just my opinion.
I think
Um,
it's a fun ship. Like I feel like ships don't necessarily have to be serious, right? So like I think it's fun. It's a fun ship.
I think I'm just too committed to Darius and Rain, to be honest.
I want
Like
Darius and Rain so badly.
they have so much more chemistry.
um that's why I'm not necessarily so excited for the Avatars reboots, Shadow. That's I know a lot of people are excited for that, but I'll probably watch it just because I'm an Avatar fan, but I'm not necessarily like excited about it.
There's always the possibility of another Twin Peaks 3, right? It's rare, but Twin Peaks 3 still happened. Okay, so it's not impossible for things to come back after a long time. I mean, how long was it? It was like 20 years, maybe longer, between Twin Peaks 2 and Twin Peaks 3. But it's not impossible to do these things. It's just improbable.
Yeah. I will say, Shadow, you are talking to two very big Korra fans right now. We both really do love Korra.
Yeah, I love Korra. I think Korra is another good example of how to make a character deeply depressed without abandoning everything about their character to make it work.
Right. But it helped that Korra was not like a bubbly, happy-go-lucky character to begin with.
Yeah, and Korra's path to that kind of self-destruction was long and arduous.
Exactly. Yeah. She went through a lot. Anyway, runs the risk of franchise fatigue. Exactly. Which is why I think like Amphibia was like the perfect length. Like it was a nice, neat 3-act structure. It doesn't really need more or less than that. Whereas unfortunately with Owl House, it could have benefited from like a little bit more time, right? But anyway, I think that's pretty much all that I had to say. Let's not get into Korra discourse because maybe one day we'll do like a Korra discussion stream and we can hash out all of our thoughts on Korra because I have a lot of thoughts on Korra that we could definitely go off on our own tangent on, but we won't get into that today.
Indeed.
But I hear what you're saying. I'm seeing what you're saying in the chat, and I hear what you're saying. Is there anything else we wanted to say before we wrap up? Anything else how we're feeling about this episode? How we feel about the next episode coming up? I know that Toon kind of asked me a little bit earlier about like how I felt about the finale. Like, do I feel hopeful about it? I'm trying. I guess I'll just say this: I'm trying my best to go into it with like as little expectations as possible. Obviously, that's really hard to do when I feel so strongly about the show and how it's been going so far, and my disappointments with this second special like are really hard to ignore. But I am trying to just go into it with like as open a mind as possible. There are things that, like I said, I think that I'll definitely cry. There are things that like I can see happening that like because I am emotionally invested in it, like I know I am going to react to them. So like I do think that it's going to be good in a lot of ways. But there are things I am worried about. There are things that I am like unsure of like how they're going to approach it. And I'm worried that they're going to rely on some of the clunky tools that were used in this special in this second episode. Things like the overhearing convenience trope or like having a character monologue about their emotions rather than having it be like subtly shown to us, right? Like just those kind of like clunky tools that were used in these past couple of episodes. I think that we might unfortunately see some of that stuff again in the second episode, in the third episode in the finale. But I don't want to go into the finale with this attitude of like, oh, how are they going to functionally make this work, right? Like that's just not how I want to approach it going into it. I want to go into it thinking like, I care about these characters and I want to see how the story wraps up. I want to see how these characters get to their resolutions. I want to see these characters that I love so much like interact with each other again. That's kind of the attitude I'm going into
Yeah,
with the finale.
I agree. I don't know how anybody could be like 90% hopeful about this at this stage. Like there there's just from the critic standpoint, there's just like way too much to be doubtful about rather than hopeful. But at the same time, there's just no point having any expectations about it. Like
Exactly.
the
That's how I feel.
the the episode will come out, we'll like it or we won't, and then that will be the Owl House, and that'll be it, and the show will be over. And there's like really no point speculating because it's not out yet.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I'm not like I'm not unhopeful. I'm not hopeful either. The episode will come out and we will respond to it when it does.
Exactly. That's how I'm feeling about it for sure. Yeah, I think like I'm hopeful for some things, nervous for some things, and doubtful for some things, and but I think I'm sure overall I'm going to enjoy it. Like that I have no doubt about. Like I don't think I think like there might be some stuff that I'm disappointed with, like with this special, but I don't think I'm going to dislike it. I feel pretty confident that I will enjoy it.
Yeah, I think as a wise man once said, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact monologue. Um, we shouldn't be thinking about quality. All you have to do when you're making art is be honest, and
Yeah,
that's what people will respond to. And
absolutely.
50 points to anybody you can tell me who that wise person was.
I actually don't know, but
You should
I'll give
you should
I'll
know.
give
You
the
should
chat
know.
a chance to guess while I think about it.
Does chat know who I'm referencing? You should know.
I feel like I should know because it sounds familiar, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's not Gandalf. This character is much wiser than Gandalf.
um, Theus also said that when the show is done, it would be cool if we did like an episode ranking video, like a tier list. I think that could be fun. We could definitely do something like
That will
that.
be fun. I'd be down for that.
Yeah. Um, a V spinoff. Yeah, I know. We love V, and it would be great to see more V for sure.
I love V. I wouldn't watch a V spin-off.
I would love
I
to
would have
see like some. I
I
would love
would
to see like V shorts as like Mooring Mark comics, like just little 2-page adventures.
I would only watch a V spin-off if the critics said it was good.
Yeah, sure, fair.
But like V, there's just not enough. I love V. V is like one of my favorite side characters, probably my favorite side character. I've done lots of V art. Toon knows how much I love V. V is still just a side character though. Like we don't know nearly enough about V for me to feel like there'd be a meaningful skeleton upon which to build an actual show. But no, it is not Dumbledore either. Dumbledore's worse than Gandalf. How dare you?
Yeah.
I said wiser than Gandalf, not dumber.
I do think, Toon, that we will get some sort of like supplementary content in some way, shape, or form. Like, did I talk about this on stream or did I talk about this off stream with you, Tom, about how I feel like Disney kind of it was similar to Steven Universe, right? I think I talked about this with you off stream, so I'll say it again for stream. But basically, like I feel like it's kind of similar to Steven Universe, right? Where like the executives kind of jumped the gun with the cancellation and they didn't really predict how big the show would eventually become like after it got canceled. And so
Yeah.
like now that the fan base has grown to the size that it has and the show is as popular as it has, like I feel like Disney can't really ignore how popular it is. And so like they have to like in the same way that with Steven Universe they were like, "Oh fuck, we fucked up. We need to bring this back in some capacity. Let's give them a movie and a short sequel series," right? I feel like in that same vein
Well,
Disney kind of has to do something with the Owl
that's
House.
I kind of agree, but you're not comparing like with like here for a couple of reasons. First of all, Steven Universe got cancelled really late. It did not get cancelled halfway through. It got cancelled really, really,
That's
really
true.
late.
Yeah.
And by that point, the movie had already been written. In fact, the movie was in production since season 2. As for Steven Universe Future, I don't know. I speculate that Steven Universe Future was secured off the success of the film.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's right. Yeah.
but the movie was already there. If the movie hadn't already been confirmed, there's no way really to know if Steven Universe Future would ever have happened.
No, and the way that I understand it was like they wanted to give her a movie, but like it wouldn't make sense to give a movie if there was like no more show to promote. So then they kind of had to give her a few more
Yeah.
episodes just to like justify the movie, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I understood it. But in that, in the way that I kind of think about it though is just that the fans are so like it's just so popular at this point. Like you just can't deny the popularity and like the money is there, right? Like they can't deny the fact that like it's an opportunity to make money for them. So
I would eat up an Owl House art book. I would eat it up. I would
yes, I would love an
I
art book.
want it. Put it in my mouth.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm disturbed by how few people understood the reference I made, and I'm fearing that I may have to just say it. And
Was
you're
it
going to
not
be really
Mr. Krabs?
It was not Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs is wiser than Dumbledore, though. You got that part right.
He is, and Mr. Krabs is an idiotic capitalist, and he's still wiser than Dumbledore.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe we'll get a merch book, an art book like Marcy's journal or Luz's journal or something like that. Yeah, I would love something like that. I think that would be amazing. Yeah, who said the quote, Tom? Reveal it to us.
It was fucking Dogcopter.
Oh, that's right. It was Dogcopter.
It was fucking Dogcopter, and I'm disappointed in you, and I'm disappointed in chat.
It was Dogcopter. You're right.
I'm particularly disappointed in you. You should have called.
I should have known. I have Dogcopter. I have a signed Dogcopter poster up in my. No, I don't.
Oh my god, you.
No, I should have gotten that. That's funny. Do we have a release date for the last special? I think we do, right? Let me Google it real quick. The Owl House Season 3, Episode 3 release date. No, that's the first one. I think it's like April.
I have no idea, to be honest. Toon told me this. Toon probably knows. Toon is an encyclopedic knowledge.
Sometime in April or May, according to this article. Doing like little shorts or something. Yeah, that might be cute. Yeah, so the next special is coming out in April or May in 2023. So we won't do any more discussion streams in the meantime. So we're gonna put the She-Ra discussion on hold for now. We'll wait until after we finish with Owl House to get back to that, but we will do some other streams in the meantime. Like we might do some more casual streams. We might play some games together. We might do some more gaming streams. That could be really fun. Yeah, we'll come up with something. We'll come up with some fun ideas to do in the meantime while we wait. But yeah, we'll definitely do some more streams. Those won't go away. But we'll just wait until after Owl House to do more discussion streams, because when it comes to like critical analysis and stuff like that, it's hard for me to jump back and forth between shows.
Yeah, that's valid.
But we will get back to it, because She-Ra is definitely a show I've been thinking a lot about, especially like in thinking about Owl House as well, and like the way they are both very similar and very different. And so She-Ra is definitely a show that I want to analyze a lot more and talk more about in that way. So we'll get back to that for sure.
She-Ra's fucking dope.
She-Ra is dope. Oh, it's airing April 8th according to Toon. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so we'll have about like a little more than a month before we get back to discussion streams, and I feel like that's like a good little hiatus break. I have a lot of stuff going on in March too as well. I have like so much stuff going on in my personal life, so it's probably a good thing that we are taking this little break for now.
Well, we can play games.
Oh yeah, an Among Us stream? That could be fun.
Don't make me play Among Us.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up for now. We've been kind of stalling and joining on at this point. We are done talking about that. Is there anything else you want to say about the second episode before we finish?
I have absolutely nothing to say.
All right.
I have to go get a heat pack and soothe my poor, battered, swollen back.
Yes, let's go ahead and let Tom take care of himself so that we can move on. But yeah, thank you all so much. Oh yeah, we could definitely do like when it comes to shows like Molly McGee and Craig of the Creek. We might not do like a analysis type of stream, because I feel like there's not really much to analyze on those kind of shows.
No, but they're just like fun, nice, cute little nuggets.
But I would love to talk about those shows because I greatly enjoy them. So yeah, maybe something like that in the future could be something as well.
Yeah.
Alrighty, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and end this for today. Thank you all so much again for sticking with us for 5 parts of discussion when it came to this special. You know, we had a lot to say, and you all had a lot to say, and I really enjoyed hearing what your guys' thoughts were and your thoughts as well, Tom. I feel like we had a really great discussion. In the meantime, I am going to work on trimming these streams down and making them their own videos. So if you see these things pop up in your subscription feed, like, don't be alarmed. This is not like something new. I'm just gonna like kind of be reworking these, so hopefully more people will watch them. That's kind of my goal with it. So yeah, don't be alarmed if you see it happen in your video subscription feed. That's not like anything you missed. So just a heads up that that's happening. We'll do some more streams in the meantime, but not necessarily discussion streams, and then we'll be back with the Owl House discussion when the final episode comes out, and we'll go from there. So yeah, thank you all so much again for hanging out. Really appreciate you. It really means the world to me that you take the time out of your weekends to spend your days with us. And we'll see you all in the next one. Stay safe and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.